All right, guys, we're here for a virtual episode today, and my guest is Will Penney. And I'm actually gonna give him a compliment that I don't think he knows, but about 3 to 6 months into owning my own business, I was writing a recap of a Real Producers article, and I was having a rough day. And I remember it talked about how young you were when you started your career, and it was the first time. So I was 23, I believe you were 18. I actually felt behind for the first time, and it was very like freeing to feel like, oh, someone did this younger than me. So I just wanted to kick it off and let you know that because I probably wouldn't have told him that, but I'll let it live on the air.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I took my classes when I was 18 after I graduated from high school, and then I got my real estate license April of 89, where I had just turned 19 in December, and I failed. I would have had it in at the end of 88, except I failed the test the first time, and you had to take it face to face then at an armory up in Cleveland and wait 2 to 3 weeks for the results because there was no electronic anything.
Oh, so they couldn't even tell you if you got it that day.
No. No, no. I mean, do you ever remember taking the Iowa tests? Like when you were do you remember it was like a computer sheet and you had to fill in the circle and they threw it in a scanner? Did you guys
Oh,
still have that?
yep.
Well, that's what it was
So then
with a
there's just
pencil.
suspense
Yeah,
building.
so then they had to go and scan it, and it took 2 to 3 weeks to find out that I bombed it because I was so arrogant. I was like, there's no way these fools in my office are in their 30s. They're like ready for a nursing home, because 35 back then. These agents are now like 10 years older than me. And back then, the 10 years older, like at 29, 30, they seemed ancient.
And now they're the young bucks.
Yeah, now I'm 55. It's like craziness. But anyway.
So I got to ask, like, what was it trendy to become a realtor then, or what even put that in your head of like, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, keep in mind there was no social media, so everybody was in a box. You didn't know what anybody else was doing, right? Before social media, which is kind of unusual now. I mean, if I was growing up now, I would just find every flippin' influencer making tons of money on Amazon or, I would go do it that way. I mean, there's just so much information out there now that people just don't take advantage of. And that's because I always say, and it's controversial, but the average human is broke, divorced, and fat. It's because they don't take advantage of anything. And there's so much information on the internet that tells you how to be thin or tells you how to make money or tells you how to be good in a relationship, and it doesn't impact any of our lives.
It's all on the execution, right?
It's all in the execution. So, yeah, back then, what was your question? I went off a little bit in the weeds
Yeah, I
there.
was asking like what because obviously if it wasn't trendy, who I guess
Oh,
planted
yeah.
in your head?
So I was working at an auto parts store right after I graduated from high school, and I was all set to go to Kent State University. Somebody came in the auto parts store, the Napa store, this old guy, John Wybelt was his name, and he had a limp. And are you in Akron or Cleveland? Where are you at?
Cleveland now, but I was in Akron the last 3 years.
Okay. Do you know where Memorial Parkway is?
Yeah.
Well, the reason it's called Memorial Parkway is because there was a sinkhole and a car went in it and some people died. That's why it's called Memorial Parkway. Anyway, this guy that I know, John Wybel, who had a limp, apparently he was one of the people that saved someone in that accident, right? So he comes in the auto parts store and we start chatting, and he says, well, I got a friend of mine who's a broker over in Akron, and I was in Kent at the time. I'd never been to Akron before. Akron might as well have been in Columbus. I just never went outside of, Portage County. And I'm not from this area originally. I'm from England originally. I came over here when I was 10 in fifth grade.
Okay.
So anyway, he started chatting with me. He connected me with this guy, Rudy Calais in Akron, who owned a Century 21 franchise. Believe it or not, back then in the 80s, Century 21 was the #1 real estate brokerage in the world.
So it was like an easy choice to pick them at that point.
They were the #1 real estate brokerage back then. There was two in Kent. There were probably six in Akron. They were all over Cleveland. They had monthly conferences in Brecksville. The regional office was in Brecksville. Building's still there. We would have conferences every month. It was a great place to be a real estate agent back then. But anyway, he connected me and I went in there, met with them, and I was driving my mom's 1986 Renault Encore. It was a little red, shitty little car. And he took me on. He had a manager there, and I asked the manager, what do you have to do to be the top agent? And he's like, well, you're going to have a ways to go, because there was a guy there. His name was Hank Thalrose. He ended up becoming my mentor. He was I would say he was 67 or so then. He sold in 1986, so 3 years before, or 2 years before, he sold 384 homes. as a solo agent with no internet. So he was number 2 in the country for Century 21 for units. But his average sale price, sadly, was $39,900. So he's only making about $1,000 a sale. But still, dude, $300,000 in 1988. I mean, the average physician was probably making $100 then,
Yeah.
So I had a brand new Ford Thunderbird that was 19 grand. That would be 50 now.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, that's how I got started. And I ended up getting my license. I ended up like getting real close to Hank Thalrose. He had arthritis and he had a cane. I basically would drive his Cadillac sedan DeVille for him to appointments and hold his briefcase for him and go in and just shut up. I would be his like chauffeur. And then I would listen to what he was doing. Getting a mentor and collaborating for me was even important back then. I didn't know why, but it was. I knew I wanted to shorten the learning curve, and that's how I did it.
Like, how quick did your thinking change? Because obviously, if you don't know what everyone does for a living, and then you quickly find out how much money this guy's making. Like, did it just completely change your perspective on opportunity?
Oh, yeah, because we had this chalkboard. That was our sales board. Because again, there was nothing digital. I did have a pager, and they had alphanumeric pagers. So at the office, they could type in a message to you. That was the extent of the technology. And fax machines. A fax machine back then was $1,000. There was no scanners. That didn't come until the mid-90s.
Let me ask you this. Was business itself slower, or is it just transactions took longer to complete themselves?
They didn't take longer because it's kind of segue to now. The reason we're not going anywhere, the reason our jobs aren't going anywhere, despite all of these changes, is because real estate is built on the back of emotion and nothing has changed in the process. The only thing that has changed in the entire process is electronic signatures. Everything else is done manually. I mean, credit reporting is done differently now, but it still relies on a credit report,
Yeah.
so the process really hasn't changed. So deals were closing in 30 to 45 days back then, but everything had to be done face to face. Offer was written face to face, price changes face to face, present the offer face to face, negotiating the counter offer face to face, back and forth. Any night you sold a house, and it was always at night because you had to meet with the owner to present the offer after dinner, right? So, and then if I was representing the buyer, I would have to call them because they'd be waiting by their phone because I had a mobile phone, but it was attached to my car.
Okay.
I didn't have a handheld. That didn't happen until probably 1994 to 6 for a handheld mobile phone that wasn't like real, cumbersome, like the one in a briefcase or something, but a handheld one. Yeah. Like I had a GT MobileNet Telego phone and it was about like this and it looked like a walkie-talkie, but a bit smaller. And that was my first mobile phone where I could take it around with me. And that was a big deal. It was 25 cents a minute. And that was like really cheap. 25 cents a minute.
So you were pretty quick with your questions of,
well, it was so much cheaper because my one in my car was like $900 a month. It was incredibly expensive to have a mobile phone back then. Yeah, it was crazy. If you spent time on your phone before the GT Telego phone, it was going to cost you $600, $700, $800 a month. It was crazy. So I had one bad month where I paid that, and then I just kind of trimmed it all back from there.
When was the biggest shift technologically, like in your perspective, like that you were like, okay, this is a big difference in how we communicate with others?
The big difference was when I got a scanner and email. That happened the scanner came after email, right? Because you didn't need to scan anything if you couldn't send it, right? So email was, I don't know. I don't remember what email was, but I remember having a scanner in about 95 or 96. And it was a handheld one. It looked like a little vacuum cleaner. It was like this and a handle, and you pulled it down over the paper twice and it zipped it together. And then that was the first one. Again, I don't want to make this about all that because it's not like I was focused on any of it, but I was able, by the time I was 25, I was selling 60 homes a year. I sold 45 homes when I was 24. I got licensed in April of 88. It took me until September to get my first closing. $48,000 house. It was $692 was a commission check. And then I went on to sell a house. I was like trying to sell a house a month because I was living at home with my parents. And then at the end of 89, I left and went to Remax. I left Century 21 and went to Remax prematurely because Remax back then, there was no commission splits. They were attracting all the top agents because they very disruptive company. You got 95% of the commission and you paid, it was $1,500 a month, like back then, $1,500 a month. My rent was $430. So $1,500 a month was the cost to be at Remax, but that was, you were paying 50% to Century 21. The best you'd do is like a 60-40 commission split back then, plus a franchise fee. So Remax but I only lasted about 2.5 years and I went back to Century 21. I just wasn't doing enough business to be able to choke on that monthly fee.
When you said you moved prematurely, what was the deciding factor that really made you jump?
I was a 20-year-old hotshot. I was like, hell yeah, I can do this. My mom's best friend's ex-husband had a Remax office in Cuyahoga Falls. And he sat down with me and he's like, dude, you come on over. You can kick ass here. It was $1,500 a month. He ended up going to prison on racketeering charges. So that's where I met my wife there, a Remax Marketplace in Cuyahoga Falls. So I met her. She had moved here from Washington, D.C. We started dating. She got her real estate license. That was in like 1990. Yeah, she got licensed in 1990. She started at another Century 21 office and we didn't work together at the beginning. I worked at the original Century 21 office that I started at, and she was at the one in Cuyahoga Falls, which I ended up going to. But I went back to the old one because the broker wanted me back, and he gave me a $500 a week draw. So he gave me $500 a week in cash on Saturday mornings at the business meeting, but I had to be there at 8 o'clock. So I was like 21, going out drinking on Friday night. And then at 8 o'clock in the morning, I had to be over in Akron for an 8 o'clock sales meeting and then tour afterwards. And the only way, if I showed up at 8 o'clock, I didn't get the $500. I had to show up and meet him in his office like 10 to 8. Then he would give me the $500 and then I would go into the meeting.
Was this the original mentor you had brought up or no?
So he was the broker at the original Century 21 office that I left to go to Remax for 2 years. But then he welcomed me back with open arms. But when I came back there in 91, my wife was at the other Century 21 office. So we worked completely separate we got married in 92. So we worked completely separate. And we were selling about 70 homes a year between the two of us. I was 21 and she's 4 years older than me. But he gave me $500 a week draw. If it wasn't for that, I don't know what I would have done because I was broke. I was completely broke being at Remax at the time. I just was there too early. It was an amazing company, very disruptive. And they went on to become the largest company in the world,
So I'm curious, how did you and Mary manage? Obviously, you did the same thing, but separately, right? Like, were you having, like, did you have times where it's like, hey, we're just husband and wife versus we're both in the same industry, or did it always just kind of mesh? Because I'm curious.
It didn't mesh. That's why we stayed apart.
Okay.
Because we would have separate days at different brokerages. And back then you'd go into the office.
Yeah.
There was no remote. There was no technology to do remote, right? I had a computer, I had a 100 meg hard drive, $2,000 from CompUSA. I had 4 megabytes of RAM, on my computer. But that's what you had back then, right? Yeah, we worked at different companies for 3 years. And then we got married in 92. I was still at Century 21 Town and Country, and she was at Century 21 Wilbur. And then I finally went over there in 94 because the brokerage, Rudy, sold it to his sales manager who just crashed the company. The closing coordinator stole the entire earnest money or escrow account. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that happened. So they ended up losing their Century 21 franchise. So I ended up going over to where Mary was.
Okay. At that point, you're still working separately.
Yeah. Yes. In 94, we never worked as a team. We always worked separate.
And did you feel like there was like a benefit to that where you could stay separate but still enjoy the relationship? Like, do you think if you crossed too early, that could have been not so good?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know where it all came from, but I was smart enough to realize that if we would have worked together, it probably would have just killed the relationship. You have nothing to talk about. You work all day together, drive around the same car together, work on deals together. And then, that works for some people, but it wasn't going to work for us. So we never, ever worked as a team. We just worked separately. And we had this big wall calendar that we would mark. Mine was pink, hers was blue, and we'd mark all our sales and listings on there. I mean, we were selling back then. I mean, we were selling between the two of us. And she moved here from DC. She didn't know the area at all. And
Really?
she sold like almost 30 homes a year. And in 94, I sold 45 or 46 homes. So I was 24. And then the following year, I sold 60 because I wanted to get the Century 21 Centurion Award. And that you had to sell 60 homes or do 150 grand in GCI or 150 grand in GCI. Yeah. In commission.
So at this time, what was obviously you're providing a good service, that's known, but what was the marketing like back then before the internet? Was it a lot of like in magazines? Was it a lot of billboards? Like what was your method of meeting new people? Or was it a lot of
I didn't do any of that, man. That's where agents go wrong. They think that they're the top agents. Now, I've got a buddy of mine. He's 21. He's in El Paso, and he's going to make $400,000 this year, and he's got 30,000 followers on Instagram, right? Isaac Lightborn, guy's freaking amazing. But that is not how most real estate agents are. They're not making money on social media. They're doing it to avoid, they're paying for leads, and they're sending out postcards, and they're posting all day on social media. I mean, everybody you know that has tons of followers on social media, they're posting 3 to 5 times a day. Look at how many, because I do this. I've only got like 500 followers on, but I've got 300 posts, right? But if you look at the people that have 20 or 30 or 40,000 followers, they've got 1,500 to 2,000 posts.
The volume is way different. Yeah.
It's completely different. They're doing 3 to 5 or 6 posts a day. And it better be really catchy or you're not going to go anywhere with it. Back then, I would call for sale by owners. So that's how I was successful. I had no past clients. My family wouldn't refer me. All the adults wouldn't trust me because I was just, Willie. Like in middle school, they called me Willie, right? I killed that. I went to William for a while, and then because I wanted to go like completely formal when I was like 19 in the business. I couldn't get recommendations or referrals from anyone. There was no Google, right? So what I did is every time I sold a house, I'd get a recommendation letter from them, and I started putting them in little folders, and that's what I would use as my reviews. So even back then, social proof was important to me. I got a recommendation letter from everybody I sold a house to or for, right? And I'd take a photo of the house, and then I'd have the recommendation letter. I had that in my listing book. Our goal every day was to, back then, and for decades, was to get an appointment a day. Because if I got a new buyer or listing appointment a day, I have a compounding brain. That would be 1 a day is 5 a week, which is 250 a year. So if your conversion skills are at all in check, you should be able to sell 50 homes. And then I started getting really good at listing for sale by owners. I would list them on the first appointment. I couldn't do that now. I don't have the muscle for it now. That muscle's atrophied. How old are you? 23, 4? What are you? 26. Right. So before your age, when I was like 2 years younger than you, I could call a for sale by owner, go out there and list it that day.
And you were just, the muscle was built.
Oh yeah. I knew what to say, and I was genuine, and people believed me, and they'd be like, well, how old are you? And I quickly have all my stats on how many homes I've sold, so I had all that ready, for when they said, because I wasn't shaving, man. I mean, I looked very young. And back then I wore a tie every day. I would call FSBOs every day. That's what I would do. And I did a few expireds, but I would go in the newspaper every day and find for sale by owners. And I'd tape them in a notebook. I would call them, and I'd leave them a message, or I'd call them. And my script was, in case anyone's listening, hey, I'm calling about your house on Oak Street. My name's Will Penney. We're Century 21. Yeah, I am an agent, but I'm not calling to list your house. I know you want to sell it yourself. But however, there's not a lot of inventory on the market right now. Are you open to working with buyer agents if they bring a buyer through your house and bring you price and terms that are acceptable to you? Well, what does that mean? Well, after all commissions and all of that, as long as you net the amount of money you want, are you open to that? Yeah. Okay, great. Do you mind if I schedule time to pop over and take a quick look at the house just so I could be educated about if anyone calls me? Since you're so nice to me, I've got a checklist of all of the money pits that you can fall into that I've written down. There's 81 things, and I'll give that to you, plus all the disclosures you need just because you've been nice enough to talk to me. So then I'd go over there and I'd go through my, you found a buyer, what do you do now? And it would have the whole shit show of all the things that can go wrong in a transaction. And I would go through them one by one with them. And none of it was talking about me. It was just all the bad things that happen in a real estate transaction.
It's probably bad to even call it a funnel, but it's like you already had everything ready for what they might ask about or worry about, right?
I had an entire, all the things that go wrong, from earnest money to people ghosting you, to people not answering your phone calls, to people lying to you because they don't want to talk to you about your finances. And I would even say to them, like a for sale by owner, I'd say, and I was able to come up with this in my head. I don't understand, but I guess that's why some people are better than others, right? I would say, if you went into your doctor's office and they said, how much money do you make? Would that be a weird question for a doctor to ask? And they'd say, yes. And then I'd say, okay, well, if I asked you to take your shirt off, would that be a weird question for a realtor to ask?
Yeah.
And they say, yeah, of course. I say, so, okay, so when you ask a buyer how much money they make or what their credit score is, that's about as unusual as when a doctor asks you how much money you make. Right? But when I ask someone how much money they make, what their credit score is, what their bills are, they answer my questions because they're used to hearing that from me. You're going to have a heck of a time getting that out of a buyer. Do you feel comfortable talking about your finances? That's what I would say. So those are the conversations I would have. And I was listing well over 50% of the FSBOs. So that's how I was able to get listings early on. I would get buyers from that because I'd run ads in the Beacon Journal. I would run 2 pages in the Harmon Homes magazine. And I would get buyer calls all the time, and I was good at converting them. So I wasn't paying for any leads. I would advertise in the Beacon Journal and the Harmon Homes magazine, and that was pretty much it. And then I would answer my phone, and I would prospect every day till I got an appointment. Then I quit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me because I think that's something I've noticed is like the advertising only works if the system and sales are there, right? Like you already had this beautiful thing that if attention came to it, had a proven record of converting. So I think that's like an interesting thing for a lot of my listeners of like, you don't always have to go all in on the ads. If you have a system that works, it's just a matter of pushing some people into it. And it sounds like you were consistent too. Like that's another thing I'm hearing.
I think that nothing has changed in our business. It's a conversation business. Everything you're doing, whether it's social media or paying for Zillow or Realtor.com ad leads, everything is to generate a conversation.
Yeah.
And the problem is that a lot of agents, old and young, try to shorten it, which they can't do, by just texting or DMs. They send way too much information in writing. They try to convert in a text or a private message. It doesn't work. Yeah. Try to build a relationship. What about when all these foreign people, I'm foreign, but all these foreign people send you messages on Instagram asking, hey, how are you? You ever get that text?
Do you need SEO services that include?
Yeah. Or they'll start off with just, hey, Will, how are you? And they don't understand that that's like the creepiest freaking intro ever. Hey, how are you? I'll just usually say fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is in all of this, if you're not having conversations every day and you don't have something in place, whatever your funnel is, to have conversations every day, you're never going to sell enough homes.
Yeah. And I guess that leads me to the question of how did you get started with the Facebook groups? Because when we talked last, that was definitely like very intriguing to me.
Yeah. So basically, my business has been about, I'm backing off a lot more now. I've still been involved in $22 million worth of real estate sales this year. I only have a team of 3. We were doing almost 50 million 4 years ago. Our biggest year, we sold 256 houses in 2019 with 6 people, which is, I'd put that up against most. Most teams that are selling 250 homes are double the size or triple the size of mine. My agents were selling 30 to 40 homes each.
That's consistent. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. The only other team with those kinds of transaction to agent ratio would be like Ryan Young's team or something out of Cleveland. He's a rock star. But most of the teams it's a numbers game. You get a bunch of agents selling 8-10 homes a year, right? So in 2019, when I had Penney Real Estate, we had that for 21 years. I got a call from a guy that heard me on a podcast. And he said, because I'd done a bunch of podcasts about the size of my team. because we had such a small team. It was set up like a doctor's office. It was me, listing manager, showing agent, closing coordinator, and then they all sold homes too. So they were salaried professionals supporting the whole team. So they had salaries that kept them in the business. And then I got them all trained up so that they sold homes. Like my showing agent sold this year, she's my showing agent. So she shows my clients' houses and coordinates showings. And she's on track for 35 transactions. So that's how we do the numbers. And I keep them. They don't leave because the job is a great retention tool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, wow.
Right? If that makes sense.
No,
So
it
in
does.
2019, I got a call from a guy that had listened to, like I was on Real Estate Rockstars or Stay Paid or one of these large ones. He said, "Hey, I just heard you. I wanted to tell you something I'm doing. I started a Facebook group." As soon as he said it, because my whole business has been staying in touch with my clients because your database is the currency of your business, right? And there's no shortening it. With this day and age, I think the average person spends 7.5 hours on their phone doing unproductive things. We've become, smartphones have dumbed us down. We have far fewer hours in the day, if we're honest with ourselves about the amount of time that we spend looking at garbage, going down rabbit holes. Most of us, that's how we are. We create ADD, right? So I was thinking, I was fighting that fight in 2019 going, it's so much harder to keep someone's attention now because there's so many exposures in the course of the day. They used to be just billboards. You'd see this or ads on TV or ads on the radio or ads online. But now it's constant videos. And the algorithms are so intelligent where they just send you stuff that you feed on, whatever that is, to keep you there. So, and I didn't want to start doing I was doing market update videos in 2019 and that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to grow my company. I just had my team. That's what it was. So I was thinking about what can I do to stay in touch with people on a regular basis that's going to combat this magnet that's sucking relationships away from me, which is social media, right? So this guy mentioned a Facebook group. I could not it clicked with me so quickly that I couldn't get off the phone quickly enough. I don't remember his name. I don't remember what I said. I just heard he mentioned he had started a Facebook group. It instantly clicked with me like, wait a minute. Facebook only has 3 products: personal page, business page, and groups. The personal page and business page are for broadcasting, and groups are for conversations, engagement. So I immediately thought, holy God, I started a Facebook group that day, Penny Real Estate Friends and Family. And I went online and I started looking up engaging Facebook group posts. And I started getting like 3 or 4 different types of front doors. I would get like, post the most recent picture of your dog. What's your favorite Mexican restaurant? And I would start creating content for that once a day, 5 days a week. And I built it up to 1,000 past clients. I've got 995 or 90 past clients in there now, 5 years later. So I built this community in a Facebook group that you can't do on a business page. You can't do on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, because Facebook groups are actually a utility. Like during COVID, they were using groups, like schools communicate through groups to the parents. Hospitals communicate to their nurses and doctors through groups. Like they use groups as a utility to communicate to large groups of people. And the algorithms aren't as spiteful because Meta, Mark Zuckerberg knows that if you create a group and you can get people in there that have a common interest, and you can keep them coming back on Facebook because of the relationship that you have and what you offer them for free for him, then he's not going to fight it.
Yeah, you're keeping users on his app longer.
You're keeping people on his platform. The average person who's a member of at least one group spends 38 minutes a day, according to Hootsuite, spends 38 minutes a day on Facebook longer than they normally would. Facebook groups are the only thing that Facebook has ever advertised on television. During COVID, they were running TV ads talking about their 600 million groups because they would want to get you in a kayaking group, a stamp collecting group, Xbox 360 group, Mario Kart hacking group. There's groups for everything. Porsche 911 groups, Corvette groups. It doesn't matter. Everything, knitting, traveling. There's 600 million groups. There's 2.7 or 2.8 billion people on Facebook. Facebook is still the number one platform, period. Nothing else comes close because it's a utility. I mean, it's a utility. It's not a novelty. It's a novelty and a utility. But during COVID, people use Facebook and they've become addicted to that part of it to communicate with their friends and family in a different way than Instagram and you don't have to, it's not just about posting a photo or a reel. It's about communication, getting engagement, getting validation. I mean, I saw someone post yesterday, I just noticed that my boyfriend is mentioning all these attractive women on TV. What should I think of this? I mean, they're using it like as a therapist, as Google. It's wild. So I started this Facebook group because you can't do it on a personal page. You can't blur business with personal on a personal page. Facebook's going to call you out. If you just start constantly posting listings on a personal page, they're going to make it, your reach is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, because in 2018, they changed the algorithms. I think it was Facebook Zero, where they basically said, they noticed that the people were dropping off of Facebook. And the reason they're dropping off of Facebook is because you're sick to death of seeing that your friends have fancier cars than you, bigger homes than you, visit places better than you, more interesting than you, thinner than you, more muscular than you, better looking than you, have a better life than you. And it was driving people away. So Facebook basically implemented these algorithms that only showed you people that they felt that you had a true relationship with, based on the engagement that you have with them naturally, not just on liking a post, but also like commenting, and they comment on yours, and you send them DMs, and they see very quickly who you have true relationships with. And if you've got 2,000 Facebook friends or 1,000 Facebook friends, you might only have 50 or 100 that you see on a regular basis. Because what had happened was people were like getting contacted by people they went to high school with, and then they quickly realized why they hated them in high school,
digitally in real life.
Yeah, right. So they started dropping off Facebook. So Facebook fixed that in 2018. So you cannot reach your entire group unless you truly fight it by finding 5 a day and sending them DMs and then going to their most recent posts and commenting heavily on them. And then you post and you see that they comment on it's very hard. It's a constant fight against this spring door trying to close on a personal Facebook page. And then on the business Facebook page, it's all about boosting the posts.
Yeah, they want you to spend.
The reach on a business page is 3 to 5%. Yeah. So we've got like 1,700 followers on our business Facebook page, and we get maybe like 1 or 2 likes, and it's always the same home inspector. It's like, it does, unless you do like a crazy video, like something can take off a little, but it's
the discovery side, but
very controlled.
Yeah. The group thing is always fascinating to me, because I remember in my first 3 masterminds, it was the only place you could communicate. There wasn't even like a Slack group. They did have, I think, like bi-weekly Zoom calls, but I just remember it was so wild to see people so open about their money issues, like open about what am I going to invest in, and then also like sharing wins and losses. So it was like, for me, it was very cool to have Facebook groups because it was an access of knowledge that college didn't give. Like you were actually seeing a business owner show a live sales call, and it was very cool for me. So yeah, it's cool that you were able to find out how to do that with people that, maybe it would have been a lot of phone calls, but now you provided this community for them where they actually.
Right. So now we are staying in touch with 900 people. Our reach is 50% on average. We're posting 4 to 5 days a week. So basically, I am the mayor of a community of all my past clients and people we know, because 80% of them are on Facebook, regardless of age, right?
Yeah.
My daughter's 24, but she still is on Facebook because Ohio University would only communicate through a Facebook group. You see what I'm saying? So even though that's not their social media platform of choice, but you figure 24-year-olds and 26-year-olds aren't our typical customer or client in real estate. The average client is between 30 and 60 years old, and they're on Facebook. I mean, their choice generally, especially if they get to 35, the average home buyer is 43, something like that.
They're on Facebook.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I did. And then in 2021, all my friends knew I had a Facebook group. I basically I turned it into a business, a subscription business where I charge agents It's Social Orchard, and I charge them $89 a month, and I give them all the content that I use in my own group so they don't have to create it on their own.
Then that also obviously probably helps you with other agent relationships because you're providing them value.
Yeah, but I mean, initially I just wanted to, I was like, hey, I'm generating $1.5 million a year in commissions. How much are you generating? This is what I'm doing. It wasn't magic. I'm not a guru. I'm still using my group. I engage in it every day. It's a really great tool, and it's free. And there's no other tool that you can use. I've said this dozens of times. Name one other thing that you can do every day to stay in touch with someone. If you call them, text them, email them, message them, anything like that every day, they're going to block you or be highly annoyed or something. But if you post something in a Facebook group that they're a member of, the most they'll do is ignore it. But there's no difference between that, because Facebook notifies group members when a post is made with that little red thing. And it's like endorphins. It's like heroin. We click on that.
Yeah, get that thing out of here.
No, but the bottom thing where you've got notifications on Facebook, you're going to click on it. There's something new. There's something new I want to see. Is this like the big post of the year that's going to actually make me feel amazing, right? So even if they don't stop on the post, if they see, Penny Group, EXP, friends and family, it's like a postcard that they pull out of the mailbox, look at it, and throw it in the trash. They still saw it. It's still an eyeball. They still will think of you for a moment.
And you didn't cross that barrier to where you're like, it's a text or a call that interrupt. It's just, it's more pulled.
It's static. It's right there, but it's allowed and it shows up more. I mean, people post all day long on Facebook, and you can go see some of your Facebook friends. You don't see anything of theirs. That's because of the algorithm, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You could think of someone you haven't heard from in months and then find out they've been posting 5 days a week, times a day, and you don't see any of it. That's because Facebook doesn't feel like you've got a strong relationship. That's how they keep value on the platform.
Yeah. Real engagement versus thought I wanted engagement.
Yeah. I just saw Alex's amazing dinner with his hot girlfriend, and he's got a better life than me, and my life sucks. Fuck Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing I did want to ask you about, because I think obviously when you do it for this long, you've seen more change than any of us who are, still getting our start. What was it like for you, obviously, to go from certain brokerages back to other brokerages, and how do you handle that along the way? Because in my head, obviously, I've not been a realtor. It's almost like you have this business and then these associated brands that are kind of like maybe not necessarily an evil, but they are necessary. And you also had your own at one point, right?
So I was at Century 21 for a year, got a big head, went to Remax for 2.5 years, went back to Century 21 for 11 years. Then we left because I was on a 60-40 split back then. So that's the only reason I started my own company. I was like, I cannot believe I'm selling all these homes and they're keeping 40% of my money. It was wild. Plus the 6 or 8% franchise fee. It was bonkers to me. So I started Penny Real Estate, threw my entire identity into that because Mary was the broker. I wasn't. I was just a hooker. She was the pimp. And, that's what it was for almost 21 years. The problem in our business is that there's no end game. I didn't want to be the real estate agent working into my 60s, making a ton of money and not being able to quit. It's like the stripper who has to keep going to the Saturday night shifts because she makes $1,000, and if she stops going, then someone else is going to take that shift. And every Saturday you got to regroup and go. And that's the problem with real estate agents. There's just no end game, none at all. And my entire identity was with Penny Real Estate. The brands don't matter in this day and age. Most of the time, people don't know who you work for. Keller Williams doesn't matter. EXP doesn't matter. Remax doesn't matter. None of the brands actually matter unless you're in a resort market that has all the market share. They don't matter. Howard Hanna doesn't matter. People don't pick people because of that. The brokers and the managers say they do, but that's because they're just trying to keep their thumb on the back of us.
Yeah. And it's also like no one refers and goes, oh, Will's with this brokerage. It's just, hey, you should talk to Will, my realtor.
And the other thing that's kind of ironic, and I used to love this at Penny Real Estate. It's like, if all the agents go to Keller Williams, that's good, because if they're interviewing 3, they're going to then remember, wait, Susie and Monica are both at KW. Let's just interview one of them. Then we'll interview someone from Coldwell Banker, and then we'll interview someone from Remax, right? And they might interview an independent me,
Yeah.
right? So the brand is us. Don't get sucked into you. It's like I hear, well, Berkshire Hathaway's a great brand. That's a crutch for you, like a diet pill,
Yeah.
but what happens if that brand goes away? What are you going to do then?
It doesn't lead. It's a lingering factor, if anything.
Well, for a lot of agents, their whole mentality is the brand that they're at. I'm so loyal to the balloon, or I'm so loyal to KW. Like KW had an hashtag unrecruitable for a minute. All that does when you put hashtag unrecruitable, as someone who's been a real estate agent for 36 years, and I've been at large companies, small company, own my own small company, large company again. When you say unrecruitable, all you're doing is broadcasting to the world that you are unconsciously incompetent and you choose not to take control of your own business because they're not that loyal to you. It's like when people get really loyal to a political party or a political leader and they put it out there. It's like you could die and they wouldn't care.
Yeah, unless it benefits them, they don't care.
That's correct. So I think it's a very risky place to be when you die on that sword and you say, oh no, this company, you should be where it makes the most sense for you to make the most amount of money, have happy clients, and get yourself you and your family in a better situation. I mean, that's really the only reason that we're here.
So what I'm hearing is you didn't join EXP because they have a nice dark blue logo.
No, I was sitting on the beach. I go to Marco Island, Florida it'll be 3 months next year. But since I was in my mid 40s, we've been going away for 2 months a year, which I'm kind of proud of because most real estate agents can't leave for the weekend. And I have a small team, but I just have it all dialed in. And I was using Zoom in 2018. I figured it out and I did listing appointments and buyer consults from Marco Island, Florida with Zoom in 2018. So I had all that worked out. And then I have a showing agent and a listing manager here. And then I would jump back in and talk to the client. So I had people on the ground here and I could sell homes from Florida. So I was sitting on the beach one day and I was like, I think it was at the end of 2020. Yeah, it was going into 2021. I don't say this to be boastful, but I think we had done like 1,400,000 or 1,500,000 the year before. And because my team agents are salaried with bonuses, it was incredibly productive and profitable for me. And I started thinking, there's no way out of this business. And most agents are never even looking. It's like they go like this and it's like, yeah, I don't want to think about it. Right. And they're just focused on today and they're focused on the one thing. So I was thinking, what can I do? I need to create a residual income so that I don't have to sell homes forever. And I don't want to grow my brokerage or my team because you can't walk away from that. Can't walk away from a large team. Anyone who tricks you into thinking you can, agents aren't going to, you're not going to be on my team while I retire, while I'm making money off of you.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that for an extended period of time. So I'm going to have to be involved because it's going to be constant churn, of growing, recruiting and retaining the agents. So I'm going to just be spending my time on that if I have a large team, right? So I started that social orchard business in 2021 because I was going to get 1,000 agents paying $89 a month. That's $1 million a year. And I figured that I won't have to sell houses anymore. So I got on a bunch of podcasts to get that out there, like large podcasts where, with hundreds of thousands of downloads, like Real Estate Rock Stars. I was on there twice. Luke Acree he owns Reminder Media. I've been on his podcast twice. I was on Jeff Cohn at Keller Williams, his Elite Team Builders podcast. I've been on all the large ones. And I was talking about Facebook groups, how to grow your business with them, how to maintain relationships and scale. You can use a Facebook group to scale, because that's what I wanted to do. Well, then I got connected with this guy out in California, and it turns out he was at EXP. And I wasn't thinking about changing. I already was getting 100% of the money. We were doing great financially. I just wanted to be able to I was in the mindset that I wanted to build a residual income.
Okay.
And at your age, you're not thinking about that, although you better be thinking about retirement because it will happen whether you think about it or not. And I started putting $100 away when I was 25, got it up to about $750 a month by the time I was 30 into a SEP IRA. Just that alone is worth $1.2 million now.
Yeah. How many people do you think my age are thinking about that as business owners? Because I mean, for me, luckily, I was introduced to a financial advisor, but I don't think if that introduction happened, it would even be on my radar.
I can't remember who talked to me about that. I think one of my clients, and I just started a SEP IRA in my mid 20s. Even through the housing crash, I just kept putting money in there, kept putting money in there. Then in 2015, I started a 401k where I could pile like 50 grand a year in there or more. And then because you're limited on the other one, I didn't qualify for a Roth because it's income capped. But okay, let's just say it's worth 2 million bucks when I'm 65. Take 4% of that. That's 80,000 a year. That's nothing.
Yeah.
You can't retire on 80 grand a year. That's with 2 million. You need to have $5 million in a retirement account to replace a $200,000 a year income.
Yeah. Did you notice with others in the industry like yourself that some people were avoidant of it and you kind of wanted to find other people that would talk to you about it?
About what?
Just this entire like lingering idea of retirement in the real estate
Oh,
space.
no, I was thinking about it for a long time. In 2015, 9 years ago, I started putting as much as I could in my 401k. You know, I had a couple of rentals. If you got 5 or 6 rentals, you can't retire. I have a friend of mine who's got 130. He can.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot retire on 5 rentals. I'm sorry. And you got to put 25% down. You know, it's not going to happen. It sounds good, but it's not a good plan. It's better than having no plan. But I wanted to have a residual income, like subscription-based business. That's what I tied to my real estate business where I was an authority. That's what I wanted to do. And I'd been approached by EXP for 6 years. I thought it was a joke. I didn't think it was sustainable. I didn't give it a moment's thought. I thought that you can't give stock away to all the agents and actually expect and have a real company. It's all inflated by making your agents get stock. How do you, the residual income thing, the rev share, just, it annoyed me more than anything else because I was constantly being recruited, right?
Yeah.
But I talked to this guy in California and he had me go out to an event on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I was in. Once I saw how the company was built, kind of like Remax back in 1990, we were made fun of back then because Remax was a true disruptor. There would be no KW without Remax. You know, Dave Liniger created an $18,000 to $20,000 a year annual amount that you paid monthly, and you paid a 5% franchise fee, and that was it. Gary Keller, all he wanted to do was fix the Remax problem, which was paying it every month, even in the winter. You know, or in the summer if you're in a resort area.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. There's times of the year where you're gonna have trouble. So he just made it as a commission split, and then you paid the cap over time. Then he lowered the franchise fee, and then he had big market centers. It was all analog. It wasn't digital, and that's how he offered profit share. Everyone made fun of them. Everyone made fun of them that when these agents started talking about their caps. I'm a capper. They had these baseball hats that said I'm a capper on it. I mean, it's obscene. You know, what adult would wear that hat? But anyway, I saw that. We would go down and look in their office windows at their family values. But then the point is, they went on to be number one in the world because they grew through all of that, all of the noise, because they were different. Different being the cap and the profit sharing. And they did it in an analog environment by having larger offices, by lowering costs. But they never expected in a million years for technology to be used to lower those costs even more. So when I understood how EXP Realty, Glenn Sanford, who came from KW, when I understood that he eliminated the franchise, eliminated regions, eliminated brick and mortar offices, and that enabled him to save tens of millions of dollars a year, just like KW saved money by having the large market centers, which enabled them to offer profit share. Well, EXP was able to eliminate everything except for international, everyone working remotely, local broker staff working remotely, no brick and mortar, no regions. When I sell a house, the money goes to Bellingham, Washington. It's not stopping along the way like it is at any other at a franchise. And then they take the money that they save and they give it back to the agents in 2 ways. He tweaked profit sharing and made it revenue share. So it's gross. They could do that because of the cost savings. And then rather than just give profit share or revenue share, they gave the agents stock ownership in the company as a retention tool, which is brilliant. But there's stop checks to make sure they're not just giving it away to everybody.
So it was very much a model decision for you. It was just
I saw that I could grow a team without the liability of the cost. I could grow my company without the liability of the cost. I had no zip code or geographical boundaries. I could have you could be an agent friend of mine in Montana, and you could join to be part of my group because I provide value to you. And I've got agents now all over the country in 7 states that every time they sell a house, EXP pays me a little bit of the commission out of the company's side. So now I'm able to have a residual income, sell homes, and have stock ownership in a Morgan Stanley account. And now agents are seeing that it's real, and that's why they're on the way to becoming the largest real estate company in the world. And the cool thing is we've got imitators, which is making it even better, like Real, LPT, Epic.
Yeah.
You know, LPT and Epic aren't in all 50 states yet. So we'll see what happens with them. The jury's out. May or may not work. Real's got 20,000 agents, so it may or may not work in terms of their current comp plan. They may have to change it. But it's good because it brings more eyes on cloud-based brokerages, which is like the Remax of 1990 or the KW of 2007.
Yeah. So when you see that if something is being made fun of without maybe, let's say, a lot of substance, it's an indicator that this thing's either terrible or a great idea.
And I thought it was a terrible idea because I'm not an early adopter. But once I saw that there was 50,000 agents there, I had people like me that were there in terms of like production, had my own brokerage. Then I was like, I'm in. That's pretty much what happened. And I couldn't unsee it. I came over within a week.
Okay, then this is a question I want to end with, and I like to ask everyone. Obviously, you have a lot more experience than the business owners that will watch this. What is something that today you are still actively figuring out in your career that you're still working through?
I don't know what I'm figuring out, but I know what I need to keep doing. I mean, I still stay in touch with my past clients like every week in some fashion. Either a bomb video with a market update, my Facebook group, a newsletter, a client event. I'm staying in touch with the people that we already have a relationship with so that they never forget about us. And that is what I continue to work with.
Maybe you don't always need to figure something out. You just need to keep doing what works.
What works is having more conversations. If you're a new agent and you're not willing to, and you see in these Facebook groups, I knocked on doors and the woman chased me off the porch. I'm never doing that again. Well, that just makes you a loser. You shouldn't give up so fast. I just did 100 push-ups and now my elbow's killing me. Fuck that. I mean, you know what I mean? You got to keep doing stuff over and over and over again when you don't want to, regardless of mood. And it doesn't even have to be that much. They say if you do something 18 minutes a day for a year, you're going to be 19 or 95% better than anybody else that does it. And in our business, you can make a good living on, depending on the market, you know, if you've got a $6,000 commission and you sell 50 homes a year, that's $300,000 in GCI. You should be able to have $200,000 in taxable income, which is a very good income. That's more than what most primary care physicians and attorneys make. And you can have that's one sale a week, but it all comes with continuously and systematically having conversations. Mine was, I want to get one appointment a day. So I would make calls until I got one appointment a day, then I'd bail. I've never worked a ton of hours. You know, I would just bail after I got the one appointment. And I would do that in the morning. And then I would do whatever appointments I had in the afternoons. And then very early on, I would limit my evening appointments to Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I hired a showing agent to show houses at night and on the weekends and do open houses. And then I hired a transaction coordinator. And then I hired a listing manager so that I would only have to go out and do the listing presentation and the market analysis. And then she would measure the rooms and coordinate photos and get it in the MLS and make flyers and do all of that and get feedback. So I made it so that I was doing all the high touch stuff. Eventually, that's what I do now. I do all the high touch stuff that maintains the relationship so they don't forget about me. And then I've got other people on the closing coordination side, listing management side, and the showing agent side that do the other portions of the time drains in our business. Showing homes, all of the menial stuff, putting up signs and lock boxes, all of that. I have all of that outsourced to the 3 people on my team.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I think I'm just, my brain's flying with other questions, but I really do appreciate you coming on. And I do think a lot of that was very helpful for me to just remember that, yeah, a lot of it is just doing more of the right things, no matter what business you're in.
Don't look for new shiny objects because it's the same. We are in the belly to belly people business, and the National Association of Realtors I don't trust them a ton right now, but you know, they say that the things or the qualities that people look for when they hire a real estate agent haven't changed. They want to like you, they want you to be experienced, and they want you to have good negotiating skills. Those are the three main things that they always want. That hasn't changed, you know? So and what also hasn't changed is having conversations, scheduling an appointment to go meet with somebody, having a face-to-face meeting. You know, if you've got 30,000 followers like Isaac, you don't need to cold call. He's doing his funnel is he's doing these amazing listing videos every day, even on other agents' listings. And then he says, comment below or text money to his cell phone. He doesn't even use ManyChat.
Oh, really?
No.
Just
He's
going.
getting 20 DMs a day.
Yeah, don't need many chat.
He doesn't even use ManyChat. He's not having it automatic. I asked him, I'm like, dude, when you say comment this in the, he's like, no, I'm not. He goes, I just send it to him. He's getting with 30,000 followers, but most of us don't have 30,000 followers. You know, we're lucky if we have 1,000 or 3,000, or if we've had something that has gone, even if something's gone really viral, you might have 2,000.
Viral relevant to your business. That's, yeah.
Yeah. My average video is getting 200 views, and I've got one that's got 37,000, and it was a story, and it didn't get me any new followers. I'm not saying don't do that. You want to do that. You want to be relevant. You want to be on the platforms. You want people to be able to look you up and find you. That's why we still post our sales on our business page, on my other Instagram page, so people can look us up and go, yeah, they're selling houses. They want to be able to find your website, your Google profile. They want to see that you're on Instagram and Facebook. Too many of us are going all in on TikTok and all in on Reels, and we're not doing other, and we're thinking that's enough, you know, and it isn't enough.
It's only, one piece of the pie.
Yeah. My business is social proof, which is Google. I've got 290 reviews on there. I get a listing a week, probably from that on average. So social proof, staying in touch with past clients or mailings, that kind of stuff. So that would be the marketing side. And then the going out of my way to prospect. I do a lot less of that now, but that's because I did it for 25 years.
A little bit of compound effect.
I got a big enough database that I can just work on those now.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you doing this, and I appreciate you making the time for it. It means a lot to me.
Well, I have a lot of respect for you, man. I think you're doing good things.
Thank you. I'll keep doing that, and I won't get distracted.
Try not to. It's the poison. It's the poison.
All right, sweet. Let me hit record here.